Hey, it's Sandra. Welcome to another episode of Asexualise, My Asexual Life. This is a place to be for education about asexuality, so subscribe and hit the bell icon right now. It's also your place for asexual education, but with a twist, because it's also the place for asexual lifestyle entertainment and information videos as well. So I know I repeated myself twice there and said asexual education, but I meant to say that it's not just education, it's lifestyle and entertainment. So tonight I've got a movie review for you, a no sex movie review. So if you're an asexual who is sex repulsed, I'm personally sex repulsed for me. I'm not interested in seeing sex in movies. I get so fed up with it. Then this is a movie review for you. So I am going to discuss the movie and review the movie Harold and the Purple Crayon. Now, this movie has just come out in the UK. So if you are going to watch it and you've not seen it wherever you live and you don't like spoilers, please do not watch this video because I'm going to spoil the plot for you. And I'm going to give you my personal review and take of how I found the movie to be. So first of all, it has got no sex in this movie, which, like I said, as a sex repulsed asexual is really good. There's none of that, which is great. But the film is really interesting and crazy in a good way. Like, I really enjoyed this movie for multiple reasons. And I'm going to go into that now. So if you want to know the story, the premise of the movie, it's based on this character called Harold. And Harold is a character in a book. He's a boy. And he has Porcupine and Moose as his friends. And whatever Harold draws comes to life. So he's in this book. This movie's actually based on the book of Harold and the Purple Crayon. And the real life narrator is no longer here on planet Earth. So I think he would absolutely love the fact that they've done a movie of this, of his book, of his creation, especially as I'm a writer. I know what that means to an author if you have a movie written based on your book. I haven't had that happen to me yet, but I just know what an amazing thing that must be and feel like. And unfortunately, the real author of that book is not here to actually celebrate on planet Earth, but it's good that his work lives on in this movie. So Harold is a boy, like I said, who can draw everything and anything basically with a purple crayon and make it come to life. And in the storybook, he has Moose and Porcupine as his best friends. They go everywhere with him, and he draws whatever he wants. He draws a bed, he draws a pillow, he draws the moon, he draws his window and all this lot. And so it's really interesting. You see him as a very small boy growing up. And then one day his narrator is talking and then just disappears and stops talking. And so Harold is like bewildered by this. He's like, what's going on? And he refers to his narrator as old man. And so Harold has this ingenious idea to draw a door to the real world, to real life, rather than being in a fiction book. And for him to go from the fiction world into the real world. And Moose and Porcupine want to go with him. But first of all, he goes forward. And he does draw this door because he believes that anything can come true with this magic crayon. He draws a door and he goes through and he ends up going from this cartoon character into this real life human body as an adult guy. But he's adult, but he's still very playful like a child because he's younger in the book than his body is in the actual adult world. And then Moose decides that he wants to go into the real world. So Moose then opens the door because the door's like been shut, I think. And Moose, has it been shut? I'm trying to think. I think it's been shut, or maybe it's been left ajar, but then Moose goes through. Moose goes through, and then Porcupine, when Porcupine's trying to go in the real world, they can't get through for ages because the door has been like locked, well, shut behind Moose. And Porcupine's trying to get a jump up the door to get the door open. So Porcupine goes into the real world late. So every one of those characters ends up in a human body, whereas before in the beginning of the movie, you see them as a cartoon drawing. And with Harold and his purple crayon, everything he draws is purple. Go figure, right? And so what happens is Harold and Moose end up like trying to find the old man narrator, but they don't have much luck because they only have basically the information that I'm trying to find an old man who's like a dad to me. And that's all they've got to go on. And what happens is when Harold and Moose are walking, they're kind of like, when they come into the real world, they don't really understand that. They go into like the parks. It's a really funny movie. They go into the parks and start talking to like this old man, thinking that's the narrator because he's just an old man. And the old man's basically got his walking stick or something similar and trying to smack them away with it, saying you're absolutely crazy. The old man reports them to the police and says, oh, there was this guy here and there was this other guy called Moose, and then they were drawing things with a crayon that came to life, and the police think they're absolutely crazy, and they say you just got to humor the crazies, and they're like, oh, we'll get a case file against this, and we'll file a case against it, and we'll get a team out to help. And they just basically ignore the old man, but just pacify him, if you know what I mean. So there's quite a lot of hilarious moments. This film is really good, I have to say. I loved the movie. It was so crazy in such strange ways because there's so many different nuances to the movie. There's so many different things they put in it because they're constantly like striving to kind of get the balance between the real world and imagination and things coming to life. So I really love these different elements. So I think lots of asexuals would enjoy this movie. And so Harold and Moose at one point are going along near a road, and this woman basically nearly runs them over. And she goes and apologizes, asks if they're okay. And what happens is she ends up with a flat tire because she doesn't see them. They're in the middle of the road. So basically, they're not used to going on the road. So I think, Harold draws like a bicycle. They're out in the back. They're on a bicycle, but they're in the middle of traffic where they're not supposed to be actually riding. But because they're not used to the real world, they just make up their own rules and do what they like. And the juxtaposition of their sweet and innocent real world naivety, if you know what I mean, coupled with the danger of the real world and the fact that everything's got to be done a certain way, is very interesting. It makes it very funny because Harold and Moose are just like chilling out and having fun like kids throughout nearly all the movie. Whereas there's serious like road traffic and there could be accidents, and they'll be zooming on. Sometimes they'll be in a vehicle that Harold's drawn or bicycle, and they're going the opposite way to what the traffic's going, and stuff like this. It's kind of crazy. And so this woman knocks into Harold and knocks into Moose. And it's kind of their fault in a way because they're not actually looking at what they're doing. But Terry's speaking to her son Mel, and she's kind of like distracted by him. And then she knocks into them and she gets out of the car. Like I said, the tire goes flat. And it's like, oh no. And so anyway, what happens is Harold draws a new tire and gives it to her to put on the car, and she thinks it's weird, like where's that come from? And the boy Mel sees that Harold's got this, there's, well, I don't think he cottons onto the fact it's actually a magic crayon, but he sees Harold drawing something. He's like, wow, how did you do that? And he's like, oh, I've got this dragon called Carl. So Mel's got this dragon called Carl, but Mel's mum called Terry thinks that Carl doesn't exist and that Mel is making Carl up, and this fire-breathing dragon doesn't exist. It's just Mel's imagination. And the boy is imaginative. The boy is very similar to Harold in the fact that he believes things can come to life. He believes in the fact that you can draw something and it can become a reality. He believes in imagination and things becoming true. And the theme throughout this movie is that, you know, you can create anything you want in life. You can bring things from your imagination to life. And it's a very, very playful, funny movie with lots of very crazy antics going on because of the juxtaposition between the fact they've just come out of a picture book, if you like, into the real world, and they can't start saying the real world is really horrible. It's like boring and bad, and it's more difficult than they thought it'd be. They thought it'd be really good fun, but obviously there's loads of rules and regulations. And in their own picture book, no one can get hurt. It's just like playtime and fun time with hanging out with each other as friends. So the real world's not like that. It can be a lot more cruel and judging and harsh. But Harold and Moose make it really fun. Throughout the movie, Porcupine, for the majority of the movie, is trying to catch up with Moose and Harold. And Porcupine ends up behaving like a porcupine, even though it's a woman dressed in like gothic clothing. And she's got like this hair that's purple hair. A lot of asexuals would love this, I think. Purple hair, like a mane, like a huge up here. It's got a bit of white in it as well. It's like she's wearing a bit like the asexual flag colours with her hair, because her hair's like purple and like a whitish colour, and then she's got black clothes on. I don't know if anything she's got is grey, so I think it's a bit like the asexual flag colours, a lot of what she looks like, actually. So that's why I think asexuals will really love the movie. And so when each of the characters comes through the door into the real world, they're still in character. So when Moose first comes through, Moose is still like acting like a moose. But it's very interesting because in the real world, Moose actually turns from a, being in a human body to back to being a moose sometimes, and back to being a human body. So he like fluctuates in the real world. It's very strange. And then Porcupine, you know, scratches around the ground and sniffs like a porcupine, even though it's a woman in the real world. And Porcupine ends up like breaking into things, stealing a jacket, eating food. She causes chaos in this restaurant, trying to get pies and loads of stuff. And she ends up like with the police after her, trying to arrest her. It's quite funny. She's always trying to play catch up, but for a lot of the movie, she isn't catching up with Harold and Moose. And so anyway, meanwhile, Terry's apologized for Harold, you know, for hitting Harold and Moose. And Mel is in the car with Terry because that's her son. And you find out that Mel's father's died. So Terry's, I think, I'm guessing with her husband or previous partner was dead, you know? And so Mel is kind of like, Terry's the mother and Mel's the son. Because often in the UK, for example, Mel is a female name and Terry is usually a man's name. So I just want to put that out there, that the mother's called Terry and the son's called Mel. And I think that's kind of good that they're actually using gender non-conformist words, if you know what I mean, for names. And obviously every country has different names. Like Mel Gibson is a bloke, right? And you know, Terry Hatchett, that's a guy, isn't it, who's a author. So you know, different people can be called different names, but a lot of people would associate the UK with being, you know, if it was Mel, probably it'd be short for Melanie or Melanda or Melinda or something like that, you know, for example. But anyway, going back to the movie, so it's really ingenious because Harold literally draws anything with his crayon in the real world as well, not just in his picture book world. And so there's moments in the movie where what happens is Harold and Moose go to stay for one night with Terry and Mel in like Terry's garage. It's like, I think it's like, yeah, it's like a garage, and she's got like old stuff there, and Harold asks her, what is this? And it's sheet music, and she's like, oh, that's my like former life. And he's like, oh, what do you do for work? And Terry's like, I work in this retail place where they sell everything. And because Harold doesn't understand the language of humans, if you like, he thinks Terry really likes his job. And then Terry's like, no, I hate my job. And he's like, oh. So he said, maybe like the playing piano, because he finds out Terry likes the piano, is actually your calling and not the retail. But she's like, well, that's my job. So anyway, I'm not going to go through every single bit of the movie, but there's a lot of hilarious movies. Harold draws a plane at one point, and it's hilarious because Harold's in the plane and Moose is in the plane, and also Mel's in the plane. Mel's meant to be going to school, but Mel decides to help Harold and Moose to try and find this old man that is the narrator of Harold's books. And at one point they go up in this plane, but before they go up in this plane, a very important part of the movie is they go to the library to try to find out who the narrator is. So who is Harold's dad, in effect. And so they take Mel with them, and Mel and Moose and also Harold end up going to this library. And the librarian guy is an actual author, and he does like this talk from his book, which is very, very dark. And the people that came to listen, by the end of it, they've all left the library because they don't want to hear any more of his story, because it's very psychopathic and dark. And at first, you're not sure if he's actually the librarian, but then you realize he is. So Mel knows that he likes his mum Terry. And so when they go to the library, Gary, who is the author who's got this really dark, brooding book, and he's basically frightened everyone away out of the library by telling parts of his story. Mel knows that Gary likes his mum, so Mel plays on that and says to Gary, can you help us find Harold's dad? And then Harold reveals more the fact that he's got a purple crayon. Does he reveal he's got a purple crayon? Actually, he doesn't. I don't think that becomes apparent till afterwards. So Harold, I think Harold says some stuff, and it's not enough to go by, basically. And so Gary can't help them. But as they go to leave, like, Gary suggests, why don't you put like messages in the sky with your phone number for this guy to find you? It's kind of a joke. But because Harold takes everything literally, because he's like a kid, he goes and creates this plane outside, which this guy Gary sees. And he sees him take this purple crayon out and create an actual plane with it. And Mel is meant to have gone to school because his mum thinks he's gone to school, but instead he decides to help Harold and Moose find their dad. And they go up in a plane together, and it's absolutely hilarious because Harold is just diving up and up and up into the sky because he's not used to the real world. And Mel's got Mel one of those helmets, and Moose is in the back, and they're just going up and up and up in the sky like a rocket. And Moose is in the back, basically looking like he's peeing his pants, or in this case, like very moosed out. And in part of the way up to the sky, plummeting really high up to the sky, I don't know if plummeting high up's a word because it's the opposite, a sentence, because it's the opposite. Plummet means go down, doesn't it? Going up into the sky, Moose actually does change into part moose again. So he ends up with moose legs hanging out of the plane and has literally gone through the bottom of the plane, trying not to fall to his death. And Mel, the little boy, is really enjoying it, going, yes, this is so cool. And Harold's just going up and up and up into the sky. It's really, really funny. But because Gary saw Harold with his purple crayon making this plane, he then fathoms out that Harold is actually from the books, Harold and the Purple Crayon. And he goes and takes this library book off a kid in the library, and works out that it is actually Harold. And so at a later part of the movie, he says, I worked out who your dad is. And he's this guy. And so, yeah, the books were originally written by someone called Crockett. And so they now need to go and find this narrator, right? But Gary is a very strange guy. Like I said, his work is very dark. The stuff he's made up in his book. And what happens is Harold and Moose end up like spending more time with the boy. The mother ends up losing her job because of Harold and Moose. So the boy gets into trouble. Mel gets into trouble because he has this whistle round his neck. And this is to call Carl the dragon that his mum believes doesn't exist. She thinks it's just fictitious in his mind. But he goes to school with this whistle on, and these boys bully him for having this whistle on. And partway through the movie, Harold has given Mel part of his crayon and broke it in half, and it still works. And so Mel manages to bust through the door, and a long way into the movie, you see this actual dragon come to life, which is so super cool. So Carl, who his mum thought was an imaginary friend, is actually a fire-breathing dragon. And he comes to life, and it's amazing. It's a really interesting creature, because it doesn't look like a normal dragon either. It looks like a cross between a dragon and a lizard, really. I guess dragons are part of the lizard family, I think, maybe. But it actually looks cross between a dragon and a lizard together. It's a very kind of strange, weird little thing. And that ends up being in school, and one of the people who's bullied Mel actually gets hurt. But of course, this dragon is an invisible dragon, so it disappears and becomes invisible. So the headmistress thinks Mel is to blame and calls Mel's mum, Terry. Now, Moose and Harold happen to have visited her store, and she's then arranged for them to cover her for an hour while she goes to school to see the headmistress about Mel being involved in bullying. Mel's actually the victim, but it makes the way things have been makes it look like Mel is actually the person who's caused the damage. And so Terry goes to the headmistress and gets Harold and Moose to fill in for her at this big, it's like a big warehouse discount retail store, as far as I can make out. And she's on a final warning from her boss. And what happens is utter chaos. So she leaves them to it. Of course, they're not used to the real world. So Harold and Moose have been given very brief instructions from Terry as to what to do with the warehouse stuff. And so she's like, all you have to do is pick up the box and put it on here, pick up the box, put it on there. And when she's gone, they pick up the box and there's fragile stuff in the box and they just chuck it on the shelf because they don't know what fragile means because they're not used to being in the real world. So they just pick the box up and it goes bang and clunk and bang, and it's just breaking everything. So all the warehouse deliveries are gonna, that have got fragile on them, are gonna be broken. I did have to go to the toilet at this point in the movie, when they were doing this, so I didn't see every single little bit of this, but when I came out from the toilet, Harold was drawing stuff with his crayon, and he'd drawn this thing which was like, like a kid's thing where it's like, a spring and you put it on the steps and it goes down the steps. I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's a way that it's this massive like spring, and it's like the way the gravity is. You knock it down the stairs and it goes like a caterpillar down the stairs. Well, Harold had created these two massive springs for this old lady to stand on to get these, like, I think they're plastic sieves down. And the trouble is they're so springy that the old woman was like wobbling. So that was one of the things he created with the pencil. And then in the actual store, there's this plane, this helicopter, actually, I think it is. And it's one of those slot machine things. So it's just like a fantasy thing. It's not like it doesn't really move and go up into the air. But Harold hears the boy going, "Oh, why won't you work? Come on, come on. Like, I want to fly you," type thing. And so Harold draws real propellers on the this like helicopter, and it comes away from the floor and actually starts going up into the air, and the mother of the boy in this helicopter just jumps on the bottom of it, and she's dangling from the bottom of this helicopter that the kid's in, that's going across the store and the woman's knocking into things with her legs. Meanwhile, the old woman who's been on the springy things, who's losing her grip, she then clings on to the mother of the kid that's in the helicopter. Bear in mind, this is all in the shop. And she clings to the mother, who's then holding on to the helicopter for the kid. And they're all going across the store causing havoc, and all their legs are smacking everything. And it's just causing utter chaos. Absolute utter chaos. Till eventually there ends up being like, I think there's this fire that breaks out or something, and it's just ridiculous. And Harold's like thinks he's doing a good job by making things come to life and people getting what they want. But the problem is he's actually created a puma as well. And it's a real animal puma. He doesn't realize puma is a brand. He thinks it's actually an animal. So he's drawn this animal because someone said they wanted puma. Do you have puma? So he drew this puma animal. It's so funny. It's absolutely hilarious. And anyway, the mother gets fired from that job. It's just so funny, but she really hated it anyway. And that's when Harold magics up a piano and gets her to play piano in public, and everyone loves her music. But there is a twist later on where, remember I told you the librarian is in love basically with the mother, Terry. And the librarian is very dark and brooding. His name's Gary. And so he's written this book, and it's not, the manuscript people don't really want as well. The publishers don't really want it. So he decides to lure Harold into thinking he can help him. Because what happens in the end is, near the end, is Harold, I am going to spoil this. So if you haven't seen the movie, do not listen to the rest of this if you don't want to know the ending, right? So Harold eventually finds the author of the Purple Crayon, Harold and the Purple Crayon books, where he came from, because of the librarian Gary does help him in that regard, but he's given him a false sense of security, really, and he's kind of setting him up to fail. And so he lets Harold know that this guy, something Crockett, is the guy who is his narrator dad, if you like. And Mel says, wow, this is like 20 minutes away from here. So they got Mel, who wants to go with Harold, and Moose. And by this time, Porcupine has finally caught up with them. There's a lot of stuff that goes on with Porcupine. They get arrested at one point as well. And they escape the arrest. And so Harold goes to this place where the narrator's supposed to live, and finds out, as you might have guessed by now, that the narrator is dead. And so Harold stops believing. He stops believing in himself. He stops believing in the crayon. He thinks the crayon's dumb. He's dumb. And he basically calls his friends dumb, like it's just a dumb world and dumb people, and we're just characters in a book. And then his friends Moose and Porcupine disappear, which was quite intense because I didn't expect that to happen. And that was quite sad. But do they come back or not? And Gary, who's the psychopathic author that writes dark books that no one wants, basically, and who's the librarian that chases people away by giving renditions from his books that no one wants and publishers are not willing to take on, he ends up conning Harold at this point because Harold doesn't believe in things anymore. He lacks imagination. He just doesn't believe in himself anymore. And he lures Harold into giving him the crayon. And this is where it gets really even more strange because he then captures Harold and he in handcuffs, and he creates his own world. He gets a crayon off Harold and he creates his own world from his book in the movie. So you've got Harold, who's from Harold and the Purple Crayon, come out of the book into the real world, who meets this author who then ends up capturing him, stealing his crayon and drawing his own fantasy world in the real world. So you've got a fictional character who's gone in the real world, and you've got a fantasy author who's brought the fantasy kind of horror, if you like, to life and captured Harold. And then Mel comes after Harold and they both get captured together. And there's some weird stuff that goes on with this because you see the floor caving in, everything that Harold's kind of like before this happens before as well. So and while Harold's captured, the things that Harold made before, like created before, these all disappear to dust when Harold's thought, is not imagining things anymore. He's doesn't believe in himself anymore, and Mel comes to his rescue, gets captured with him, and eventually convinces himself to believe in himself, because without believing in himself nothing can happen. And then the guy Garrett, so what happens is Mel actually has his half of the crayon. So then finally, after nearly, I'm going to spoil it for you, so beware, I'm going to give you more spoilers. So the basically the ground is caving in. They're ending up in like this guy's story in real life, but it's fantasy story in real life. And the guy is a complete psycho, and he doesn't want Harold to get his part of the crayon. And so what happens is a battle between Mel's part of the crayon, which he gave back to Harold, and the guy Gary, who's got Harold's part of the crayon. And they end up in a battle of drawing armor and drawing weapons to try and go into battle with each other as quickly as possible. They're all drawing like defense items and stuff, which is really, really funny. I really like this. I thought this was a really hilarious scene where they're drawing as fast as they can. They're like drawing like weapons and shields and things to like deflect. And at one point though, it looks like Harold's built a great big fan, but in the end it ends up spinning so much it spins itself off into like the city or town or whatever it is. It's really funny. And so it's good that they have this battle, but then Gary is so crazy, he eats the crayon and then ends up absorbing the powers of the crayon within him, and ends up having all this purple stuff come out of his fingers, and ends up turning into his full character as he's written the like lead acting role, if you like, in his own story. So he's bought, and he's very obsessed with revenge because of all the editors that turned down the manuscript where he sees a value in it, and he is the dark person character in his own book. I love the juxtaposition. I love the fact that Harold's come from like I said, from fiction with Porcupine and Moose into the real world, and Harold's in the real world but doesn't really want to live in it and wants to live in his fantasy world because he thinks it's better. So I really love that contrast. It's very cleverly done. The film is kind of really crazy. I was loving it, but I was thinking this is really crazy. It's like a crazy film, but it's really, really good in a very kind of crazy, weird way. And so Gary swallows a crayon, and so there ends up being all this fire, and there ends up being finally Mel's mum, Terry, comes, and Mel's there, and eventually goes to the mother, and then there ends up being loads of fire separating them from Gary and Harold. And Gary's all like in costume by then, like in his fantasy world, he is this character, and he's absolutely crazy. And so the ending of the movie is really good, but it's really funny. I don't want to tell you every single little thing, but I've told you the majority of it. But in the credits, there's one thing I'll tell you in the credits without telling you everything, but I've told you most things. In the credits, there's one little bit where it's quite funny. So Harold, in his fantasy world, his like queen, if you like, the woman he loves, is looking identical to Terry, Mel's mother, because Terry actually sees a door into Gary's world and sees this woman that looks like her and says, "Why does this woman look like me?" Because Gary's fantasy has always been to be with Terry in real life, but he can't have her in real life because she's not interested in him. And so when he goes into this fantasy world, it's actually like her. It looks like her, but because he's created the same, he's put her in his book, basically, in his fantasy, that has become a reality because he like swallowed the crayon, and because of something Harold does. I'm not going to reveal that last bit. Something Harold does, then basically he's in his own story, and Terry is like replicated in his fantasy world. But at the very, very end in the credits, after everything Gary's been through, right, becoming the enemy, everything, he thinks in his fantasy world he's going to get Terry the woman, which has always been what he wanted in real life. But he thinks, I can't get her in real life, so I'll have her in my fantasy world. And by becoming his own character in the fantasy world rather than the real world, he feels he can get her. But the twist is she doesn't. Well, this is one of the twists. She doesn't go with him in the end. If you watch the credits, when they're rolling after the movie ends, this is not the whole ending, but because I'm not telling you what happens to Harold and Terry and Mel, but Gary, he thinks that she's going to be with him. And it's so funny because she turns around and says, I'm seeing someone else. And she's seeing this much younger guy than him. He looks about 22 or something. So she's an older woman with a younger guy. And he's really peed off that even in his fantasy world, she doesn't actually want to be with him. She's actually dating someone else. I thought that was hilarious. I really did, especially because I'm an older girl that likes younger guys in real life. Really, really young. And that's the whole point of the bit in credits, is that he's like an older guy and she's really not interested in older guys because he doesn't look that great. He's not her type. And she's really not interested in that. And she's young looking anyway. And so she goes and peace with the young guy. I thought that was really good. Like I said, as an older girl that likes younger guys in real life, I love that plot twist. I thought it was really good. But that's in the credits. So unless people wait for the credits, they won't see that bit. They'll see the rest of the ending, which I haven't actually told you what the rest of the ending is. But I've given most of it away without fully ending it for you. So I would encourage you to watch the movie. I think it's hilarious. It's very crazy. Like, if you're looking for something conventional, don't bother going to see this. I mean, if you're looking for something like children's convention where anything can happen and imagination can happen, then yeah, probably go and see it, because it's probably more stereotypically children conventional, where it's kind of crazy, where you've got the dragon and you've got things that he draws that come to life and all the imagination stuff. So it's got like recipe in there for what a lot of kids or young adults or fun adults would like, right? But if you're looking for something that how can I put it? Like, it's still logical what happens, but it's just the stuff that Harold draws is so crazy sometimes, and the things that happen is just so crazy in this movie. Lee, unconventional is good in my books. Yeah, it's good in my books as well. Um, it's just really I really liked it. I just thought it's so funny putting them in the real world when they're not used to it and all the things that go wrong, but end up being right, if you know what I mean. It's really funny. And everything Harold draws is purple, everything, where it's a piano, a car tire, painting a house, making a plane, everything is purple. I guess like I said, like, go figure with a purple crayon, but I didn't really, even though he's got a purple crayon, I wasn't sort of picturing it's a purple crayon, he's gonna create purple stuff, but obviously that's logical that he's going to do that. And, I thought the bit where the narrator had died was sad. I mean, I kind of already worked that out, that's why he must have disappeared. But I did think it was really, really sad, and there are some sad moments where Harold's friend Moose and Porcupine disappear because he doesn't believe in himself anymore in that part of the movie. And that was really sad. I'm like, what's going on? This is too sad. I can't be doing with this. This is too upsetting. Um, but I did like all the ending. So yeah, I think the ending's a good ending, a very good ending. I liked it a lot. So, but it did, like, I was tearful about the fact, it was sad, the bit about the narrator being no longer here, but I think the narrator would be so proud, because it's based on a real narrator, and I think he would have been so proud. And in part of the movie, I don't know if this is actually his real home when he was here as a narrator in real life, but they show you this bit like his home in the movie, the narrator, and you see all these pictures of the books and how the book came to life. I don't know how much of that is from real life of the narrator before he died, and how much of it is just literally for, entertainment purposes that they've created for the movie. But I thought it was interesting to see that, and I thought it must be so emotional for the guys playing Harold to actually play the character coming to life. I'm getting emotional now talking about it coming to life because I'm a writer. I get emotional about this type of thing, because I'm a writer, and it's to see your work come to life like that. I mean, mine are non-fiction books, but I have actually written children's picture books myself, but I've never published them. So I do actually have, but they're for 3 to 5 year olds, so younger than the age group for Harold and the Purple Crayon, I'm assuming, because I haven't actually read Harold and the Purple Crayon, and I think probably it probably was for a really young audience, maybe that age to begin with, and then throughout the books it got to an older audience when Harold was growing up. But I think the movie's really good. I think the characters are really clever. I think the way they've done the transition from them coming out of the book into reality, and the difficulties they face, and the fact they're still acting like they're, uh, they're textbook characters, if you know what I mean. I think it's hilarious. I think it's really, really good movie, and I would definitely go and see it. If you are going to a movie, please do see it, especially if you like fun stuff and kind of kids movies, and you like stuff a bit strange and weird. And I thought it was weird when the guy Gary, like, swallows a crayon. I'm like, "Oh my lord." Um, yeah, he really loves swallowing a crayon as well. He thinks it's hilarious. So yeah, Lee, I love the idea of this. Yeah, I think it's a really good movie. It's just come out, and it's a really nice one because I write. Anytime I see like a movie to do with books, based on a book, and where the character comes to life, it's amazing. But they did have a theme at the end of the storyline, and they did say something which I think is important, because I do agree with this. And they said the narrator wants people to know that it's not about the things that happen to you, it's about the life you create for yourself, in a nutshell. They might have said it in those exact words. And they wanted to show the character Harold, because in part of the movie, Harold wants to know why the narrator made him in the first place. Why did he create Harold and the magic crayon? And that was because they wanted to show the world that you can make your dreams a reality. You can use your imagination to create the life that you desire and want, and bring things to life that's in your dreams. And I get really emotional about this stuff because there's usually an underlying theme with most of the movies I watch, the majority of them, and it's all about going through hardships and tough times to achieve your dreams and to make the impossible come true. And it's something I really believe and follow myself in my life, actually. I just don't give up. You might notice this channel, I just don't give up. I've been on this channel now since 2015, got over 870,000 views by myself on this channel. I mean, it's not by myself, without you supporting me and without you sharing these videos and commenting on them, none of this would be possible. But what I mean to say is it's not like I've had me and a team here of people, because some channels, they have a team of people producing the channel and, just doing this, that, and the other behind the scenes. I don't have anyone like that. That's what I meant. But obviously, without your support, your comments, your likes, your shares, being here in chat, this channel wouldn't exist, and especially not in its current form. You know what I mean? And so it's all thanks to you as well that I'm even here doing this channel. Um, but I always watch a lot of movies based on dreams coming true, that you can make your own dreams come true, you can bring your own dreams to life. I mean, if someone had even told me years ago that I would have over 870,000 views on this channel, I wouldn't have believed them. I would have laughed. But look, here I am with you now, and there's only going to get more and more views, and I'm just so grateful and thankful for every view and spreading awareness of asexuality and being able to reach different people across the globe. I mean, when I look at my statistics of where most of my viewers are from, America, the UK, or India, but there's people in Philippines, people in France watch this channel, people all over the world watch this channel. So I'm really grateful for that so much. And over 2,200 subscribers, I think it is now. It's really, really a blessing. And I know some channels have a lot more subscribers than me, but I'm thankful that everyone here, I find this community is very supportive and very loyal. So it's not about the amount of subscribers you have, it's about the quality of subscribers you have, and the amount of views is important for recognizing, and getting recognition for asexuality and getting eyeballs on it. I know there's some people that don't subscribe to channels that they may not want other people to know they like if they've got their subscriptions on public. But I would encourage anyone now who's listening, if you haven't actually subscribed, please do subscribe, because it does really help. You can put your subscriptions on private. I have my subscriptions on private to who I'm subscribed to. I'm subscribed to a lot of channels. But I do love YouTube. It's actually probably, other than Facebook, it's my favorite platform, social media platform, and I always feel really comfortable on this channel. It's like my home. It always takes top priority over any other channel I have, and I'm just really thankful and grateful to be here. And I do believe you can create your own reality as much as possible in real life. I do believe you can bring imaginative ideas to life. Lee, I have mine on private. Yeah, it's a good idea, I think, if you don't want other people to know what you like. I have mine on private because I've just got so much stuff I like, and I do a lot of research as well. I've got my playlists that are suitable for other people to watch, like my no sex movie review playlist. That's obviously public because it's a playlist for you on this channel, but my playlists I create for myself of music and stuff like that, that's private to me. So we can do that, and I think it's a good thing to do. And also with notifications, if you have a notification on for this channel, you usually get notified by email, but if you have all notifications on for YouTube, then it will come up as notification within YouTube itself. So some people have said, oh, I am subscribed, but I'm not getting notified. It's like, well, are you subscribed to all YouTube notifications? They'll be like, no. And I'm like, well, you'll only get through email. So unless you're opening your email or got the email through or notification from your email at that time, then you might miss me. But it's good to be able to connect with you here. So anyway, with Harold and Purple Crayon, I'd highly recommend going and seeing it. I thought it was a really good fun movie, lots of action, good storyline. And it was interesting to see how the boy Mel changed, and Harold really supports Mel because Mel's mother Terry doesn't believe him about the dragon, that the invisible friend that actually is an invisible dragon that is real in it's real, but it's real in the fiction. It's real, but it's like, so it's in the movie. It's not in real life, a real dragon, but it's in the movie, but it comes to real life, if you know what I mean, comes to reality. And all along, Terry, who's Mel's mum, thinks it's just like Mel having a invisible friend that's actually invisible, and you actually see the dragon come to life and then go back invisible again. So it actually is a dragon who can turn itself invisible. It's very interesting. I really love the movie. I love the crazy things they did on the roads as well. I mean, don't try that at home, but it's really quite hilarious when they're going down the road the wrong way and they're not really caring. All these cars are piling up and they're like, oh, what's going on? They're oblivious to it. It's really, really funny. So definitely go and see it. I'm going to leave you now. Don't forget to grab a copy of Diary Confessions of a Hyper-Romantic Asexual book, 78 Life Lessons to Ace Your Life, if you haven't read that already. And then Asexual Perspectives, these are my bestseller asexual books. And if you like superhero movies, you'll love this superhero style book. This is my fibromyalgia self-help handbook. Grab all of these from Amazon or best-selling bookshops. And yeah, this is suitable for people even who haven't got fibromyalgia, because it tells you how to reduce pain in up to 25 aspects of your life, most of which are good for anyone to reduce, even if you don't have fibromyalgia. And I love the fact it's told in a superhero style, so it's really entertaining. So yeah, go and get them. Fibromyalgia Self-Help Handbook, Diary Confessions of a Hyper-Romantic Asexual, and it's got life lessons in there. 78 life lessons to Asexual Life and Asexual Perspectives. 47 asexual stories, love, life, and sex, a celebration of asexual diversity. Go and read them. Love to know what you think when you've read them. I'll see you soon on the next video or live stream. I have to say that my tests are coming up soon, and my best friend is going to be with me. So it might end up that I might not be able to do a live stream later on the 7th, which we've now gone into because we're over midnight. So I might have to miss one live stream out before my test on the 8th. And then the night of the 8th, I'll be back to doing it again. But tomorrow, well, it's tonight now. It's the 7th of August now. We've gone over in the UK. Wednesday, the 7th of August, 2024, when I'm recording this. I started recording it on the 6th of August. But what I'm saying is I might have to miss the next live stream, and so you might miss a night because I've got to, like, I'll be quite anxiety induced for my test, and my best friend's going to be with me, and they're staying in a hotel in my city, but they'll probably be with me till quite late, I would have thought. So I probably won't be able to do it then. And then after that will be when my tests have been done. So pray that they're all clear and okay for me. And anyway, yes. So I'll see you on the next video live stream. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell icon so you never miss an episode. Grab those books and I'll see you soon. Lots of love. Thank you, Lee, for being in chat tonight. And I'll see you soon. Take care. Don't forget to subscribe, like I said, and share this video for someone who doesn't mind spoilers. Bye.